Screaming Chewy Show, your source of entertainment and overall fuckery. And it starts now. Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Screaming Chewy Show here. And we got special guest here. He's had quite a few big breaks here. Terry Rich. Hey Terry, how's it going, man?
I'm doing all right. It's a gorgeous day in the great state of Iowa. Now, how the heck can Iowa be a fun place, if someone asks? Did you see the beautiful behind us? We've got bike trails all over the place, which everybody loves. And it right now has the most organic oxygen of any place because of all the plants that are growing up around us, the corn and the beans. But yeah, it's pretty quiet, and that's all right in the COVID-19 space to be able to have some space when it's all said and done.
Some peace and quiet.
But always fun to meet new folks and say hi. So I'm glad to be on with you. I've had some fun. I've had two big breaks in life. You and I were talking a little earlier about how do people get to different kinds of success. My first break was being on Johnny Carson, and the second break was solving the largest lottery fraud in U.S. history. And I got to give away $1 billion in the process. So we can talk a little about that and go back to that. But whenever I'm talking to folks who are saying, I like hearing about success, but haven't you ever screwed up? I always like to go back to the first two times I had big failures early in my life. The first was in high school. Things were going well, having a great time in life, but I decided to do a little fun during the senior class band picture, and I flipped the bird on my knee. Everybody was wearing black uniforms, and lo and behold, I got caught. And of course, they wanted to try to kick me out of everything, all of the different organizations I was in. Of course, I got grounded. But my band teacher, jazz instructor, said to me, he said, hey, listen, he said, we all screw up. And if you just take the lumps and admit you did it and just take your punishment, you'll be a bigger person for it. And so that's exactly what I did. The second big, the first failure in business was when I first started in cable television. I came out of college and started writing in cable television before cable was cool. So I got to help start MTV and CNN, all of these different channels with our cable company. And I was on TV a little bit, and I noticed I didn't have a 5 o'clock shadow. I thought, you know what? I'm going to write Schick and tell them how much I love their Track 2 razor. So I sat down. In the old days, we had these things called typewriters, and sent a letter to Schick knowing that in 2 weeks I'd be called to go to New York to do a TV commercial. And I sent it off and waited and waited. And as I waited, I started thinking about, kind of like you might if you're playing Powerball or Mega Millions, what would it be like to win the jackpot? Well, the jackpot for me at that time was being on national television somehow or another. And lo and behold, 2 weeks to the day, Chewy, 2 weeks to the day, I got a letter. Here's what it said. Dear Mr. Rich, expressing your complete satisfaction with your Track 2 razor, we're glad that you sent us the letter, but you wrote the wrong company. Gillette makes that razor. And so I had failed. But you know what? By that failure, I had some excitement about what it'd be like to be on national television. And ultimately, I got to be on all networks, both broadcast and cable networks in various capacities over the years. So, yeah, we all fail here and there, but it's what we do afterwards to learn by it.
Just got to move forward, right? Just learn from it and keep going, right?
Absolutely. And cable television was fun. Being in on the early days, we had all of the stars and the programming, and I really got to work with a lot of people from HBO and ESPN, which was really kind of a trip. I got to go to many of the MTV Music Awards.
Oh my God, that's
pretty
amazing.
Crazy. Seeing Al Yankovic and a couple of the other artists over in the corner smoking something that I smelled familiar. And it was
Devil's lettuce.
Pretty crazy times. But the big break came, and again, I kind of failed in the process, was about halfway through my cable television career, they had me in charge of building them out, getting wires on the poles, all that sort of thing. And I got a call from my hometown. It's a little dinky town, Cooper, Iowa. I was just a farm kid, and we were pretty poor in our day, and got through college all right. But they said, you know what, we're going to have a centennial. We don't know whether we're 100 years, but screw it, we're going to have a centennial anyway. And would you help us with publicity? So I went over and met with this farmer, and we were talking about Cooper, Iowa, population 50, of what we could do to get some publicity to bring people out for the centennial. He said, you know what? you're our most famous person. Because I'd done some radio and television. I thought, geez, if I'm our most famous, let's adopt somebody.
You're the
So
man.
we sat down and we thought about what could we give a celebrity to be just for one day, say that they were from little Cooper, Iowa. And we decided to give away free oil and lube, because that's all we had was a garage there, a free cemetery plot. We're going to name the street after it. But then we got some questions so we could kind of screen the celebrities out. Like, have you ever chewed tobacco, own a pair of bib overalls? That sounds like Iowa. You know the difference between an apple pie and a cow pie? Questions like that. So I wrote it up in a press release and sent it off. And thinking, yeah, maybe the local newspaper would at least call us. But I printed too many of them. I had 43. So I went ahead and went to the library and just had to go to an adjacent town. We didn't have a library in Cooper. Printed out 44 different, like the New York Times and all these different TVs. The next day I get a call from UPI and they said, United Press International, we like it. We're going to throw it on the national wires. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. By the time I had hung up, 30 minutes later, I get a call and say, hey, is this Terry Rich? I said, yeah. I said, my name is Jim McCauley. I'm a talent coordinator for Johnny Carson's Tonight Show. Come on. Yeah, somebody's yanking my chain here.
Oh my God.
I said, what's going on? He said, hey, we want to do something with this. We're going to have a staff meeting, but you got to promise me that you don't go with anybody else because all the reality shows will be wanting this. I'm thinking, yeah, right. So I hang up wondering whether somebody just really pulled a practical joke on me. I picked up the phone to call my buddy to tell him, hey, we got a call. And I couldn't get a dial tone. I hear the screaming, hey, hello, is this Terry Rich? Yeah. This is Judy McCauley, or Judy Steinberg. I'm with Good Morning America. We have 2 tickets to New York. We want you there tomorrow. I'm thinking, I'm sorry. I just committed to the Tonight Show. You can't legally do that. She started screaming, threatening lawsuits, all these sort of things.
Oh my God.
Well, a long story short, the Tonight Show called back. They talked about broadcasting live via satellite back to LA, and being the first time ever that Johnny would do a remote location and talk to us in Cooper, Iowa, to be interviewed to be the 51st citizen. So they came out and they looked and they were getting the satellite, but they couldn't get all the technical deals done. So instead they just brought 3 of us out and we got to be the first 20 minutes on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show. And I didn't realize how big that is, but if you're a comedian, and you seem, Chewy, like a comedian to me, that the big thing with Johnny Carson was to be able to be on his, they call it panel. And I learned this from Andrew Dice Clay, who in his own right is is a crazy comedian. But if you got to sit on the couch and talk to Johnny on the couch, that absolutely made it. So at 29, when I failed with 44 letters, only 1 letter got a response. That 1 letter was a snowball to allow us to adopt Johnny Carson as a 51st citizen. And on that centennial, just 30 or 40 days after we sent that letter, we had, well, my number was 425,000, but the actual number is about 16,000 people showed up for this huge centennial and parade. And it was kind of the break for, well, ABC, NBC, CBS came along, Good Morning America, the Today Show. We had all of these networks in, all talking about adopting the 51st citizen. But
no pressure, huh?
Yeah. And it goes back to the question of failure. I sent 44 letters out and I failed on 43. So if I'd only sent 1 letter, it would have failed and then it'd be done. So many people, I tell this to my kids and anybody that'll listen, failure is just the first step to success. It's maybe, you have any kids, Chewy, that you know about?
Oh, no. Maybe in Mexico, but I'm not sure. I'm just kidding.
Well, when you have kids, when they begin to walk, my granddaughter came over and she pulled herself up on the couch and took her first step. And what happened? Boom, she fell over. So, you failed. Well, what'd she do? She crawled back up and tried it again. She did 2 steps and then failed. And most of us, when we have a project or we think we got that million, everybody's got $1 million idea in their head. When you try it and it fails the first time, you just give up. And I think that's the key to a lot of success, in that you got to pick up, you got to learn by it and move on. So yeah, I've had a lot of failures in life, but it's really been a lot of fun.
Very wise words, man. And you're 100% right. Many people, as soon as they fail right away, they get discouraged. And
then you get into the corporate world. Well, I was in the corporate world with a cable, and corporate mergers happen. Somebody took a run at the stock. We were a New York Stock Exchange company, and they cashed us out and they took over the company. And And that was a good deal for me. I was in a level and had tried to accumulate stock over 20 years for retirement. And boom, all of a sudden I've got all my life goals. My dad said, happiness happens when you retire at 62 and you get Social Security. And I realized happiness wasn't that. It was doing the deals and having fun and being a part of a real entrepreneurial company like that was. So because of the satellite uplink idea, when the company ended, I had to find something to do at 40. And I thought maybe I retired, but then I realized, man, you got to live a lot of years and spend a lot of money. It ain't going to work. So I started my own company we were doing from the idea of the satellite, we started going back to the cable company, and we would do a satellite uplink. I didn't realize you could just do a satellite uplink from anywhere in the US at that point. So we would take HBO, we'd bring it down, we'd send it back up on a separate satellite uplink down to all of our cable systems. And then we would show movies for free. They'd turn it on, their local channel. Hey, Marge, they're showing HBO. Oh, man, we turn it on. We're getting free movies. Somebody's messing around with the box outside. And when we did that, they at the end of the movie, we'd jump on then like this and say, hey, if you like HBO, now's the time to call. And that first weekend that we tried that, because of the idea, even though we failed, we had an idea then from Johnny Carson that they might uplink. We took that uplink idea and thought, do it in cable. And we sold over $15 million in net worth for the company in the first weekend by putting everybody together across the United States. So I started taking that business and did that quite a bit in my own company as a production company, and did a lot of work for HBO. And that was kind of fun. But like all of us, do you ever get bored, Chewy, where you just kind of say, I need to try something different? And that's what you're doing here. I mean, you're an entrepreneur and having your own podcast and things rolling. Well, I decided to start this Rich Heritage Inc. and try to come up with some ideas of things different to do. And I thought, what's the number one show on cable television? World Wrestling Federation. It's crazy. Nice. Yeah, that was huge, So I thought, what could a guy do? What other sport could we do and do that where it's, kind of fake in its own way, full contact? And I thought, the only other sport that everybody in the world loves is soccer. So I created a show called Soccer Slam, SOCKER Slam. And it was indoor soccer on an ice rink. We rented turf, put it on an ice rink. What? And then it was full contact. And we played with 2 balls in the last 2 minutes. And then I hired a bunch of stuntmen to do fights. And then, of course, the coach over here was messing with the lead player of the other team's girlfriend. And we had all these drama things going on. And we got it on Fox Sports World. It was just crazy. But you know what? The soccer enthusiasts, sounds like you're one, hated it. But the college campuses went nuts. They bought all sorts of merchandise material. So we recut it and had two Hispanic comedians do voiceovers, and it played on Galavision. And wow. It was absolutely crazy. But I failed in that too, in that it worked all right, but it cost a lot of money to produce 4 live big shows like that, bring in all the professional soccer players to play and stuntman and all that. So we got busy and we're making more money at the HBO, so we didn't produce it long. About 2 years later, I went into a Best Buy and someone said, wait, you got to see this new video game for PlayStation. And it was called Soccer Slam, only SOCCER. But I looked at it, the costumes looked a lot alike. The announcers sounded a lot like ours. So I realized some programmer was drinking at night, late at night, and whatever, smoking, doing whatever. He saw the show and he liked the idea, so he created this game. Luckily, we had the copyright on it. We had a chance that it was made by Sega and Sony. And let's just say it worked out that Sony went ahead and picked up the gaming rights for that, and we continue to have the TV rights for it. So again, I failed in that I didn't make money initially, but ultimately it worked just by trying. So that was kind of fun. So there's a lot of crazy things that you can do in life and fail and still make it.
Get those crazy ideas and just run with it, right?
That's right. But from doing the TV, I finally turned 50, and I thought, you know what? I'm 50 years old. Well, it was midlife crisis, I'm sure. I don't know. I didn't buy the fancy car. I wanted to do something different. I was traveling and making good money, but I was just tired. I wanted to be home with the kids and, do the Iowa life that is just like it is during COVID. It's really peaceful and fun, and we can still do family things and stay away from all the crazy stuff. So I had a call from someone. They said, hey, they're going to close the zoo. And I said, well, okay. They said, would you be interested in going in? We're going to make it a nonprofit, take it from the city. Would you be interested in running the zoo? It's $600,000 in debt a year. They're losing a lot of money.
Wow.
Hell, I never run a zoo before. I grew up on the farm. I know how to route and raise a cow and a pig, but what's the difference between that and a giraffe? So anyway, I got the opportunity to run the zoo, and it was just absolutely crazy and fun. And every day you went, everybody's smiling. It's just a really unique idea. So
wow. How do you even start?
Well, when it's run by a city, when it's run by a government organization, it's pretty easy to try to find efficiencies. First and foremost, we look for ways to bring. We know that when you go to a museum like a zoo, like arts or whatever, you go once when you're a kid, you go once when you take your kid, and you go once when you take your grandkid. So my goal was to try to get people coming multiple times during the year. And we had all the little kids. If you're a little kid, you're going to go to the zoo. So I had to think, how do you get, at that point it was millennials. Everybody's trying to get millennials. And what's the one thing that you like and millennials like, Chewy? Booze. I knew you had it on the tip of your tongue there. Booze.
I like the way you think.
So we started Zoo Brew. We did it at night, so there were absolutely no little kids. So, the 18 or the 21 to 35-year-olds could come, have dates outside, in the smoky bar. We served booze, we had bands, and we had all the animals out, and it turned out to be a huge hit. In fact, today, they do $250,000 a summer just in beer at these Zoo Brews as a unique way to bring more money in.
That's amazing.
The other thing that we did was you got to have new exhibits. There's always got to be something new. You don't want to go to a museum and see the same artwork or the same history or the same exhibits. And we thought of what do we have a lot of at the zoo that we could capitalize on. We looked around with that. Poop. I mean, all the animals are pooping, right? So we found an exhibit that was traveling in the U.S. called Scoop on Poop. And it was an exhibit of animal excrement. You'd see the picture of the animal, have an animal, then you could show what their poop looks like in case you're out investigating, see something on the ground.
Oh, smart.
So we brought this exhibit in, Scoop on Poop. It was a huge hit. You heard the kids giggling. Anytime you could say poop, you get a kid giggling. Yep. But here's where we made the money, is that we figured out that tigers are predators, and deer in Iowa, there are a lot of deer, white-tailed deer in Iowa, are prey. And if prey smells predator, even though they've never met a tiger in the state of Iowa, they smell tiger poop, they wouldn't get near flowers. So we started selling buckets of tiger poop for $20 and made $25,000 that summer just in selling poop.
Oh, that's crazy. That's genius, man. What?
Only one problem. At the end of the summer, the USDA came in and said, wait a minute, that's illegal to sell exotic tiger poop in the.
I had no idea that was illegal.
So that's we had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with that. The other thing is you get called in when you have a success like that, even though, remember, we had a lot of failures, even with the Carson show. I would not be where I'm at today if I hadn't failed 43 of the 44 letters. No one answered. If I hadn't sent 44 and got that one response. But I get calls all the time, and here are two crazy ones that were kind of failures, but still helped them get along. First one, Botanical Center. Think zoo, Botanical Center then calls, says, you did well here. Would you help us with ideas for the Botanical Center? So we sat down and met with 6 people, and I knew everybody around the table except one. And who that other person was I found out later, was the editorial writer for the Des Moines Register. Not the little pieces they write, but the great big half page that if you're a public official,
the big shot.
If your name's in that, yeah. I didn't realize who it was, but just like I'm talking like a madman right now, I started giving them ideas. How about this? How about that? How about that? That was a Friday. Well, Sunday morning, the paper comes out. I'm sitting down to read, open my eyes, says, think big. What would a zoo dude do to help the Botanical Center? And the first one was grow a marijuana plant. Show them what illegal plants and opium plants. Show them what people look like so the kids aren't growing them at home. Get the world's biggest Venus flytrap, big enough to suck down a cow. And all these crazy ideas I did. And so they didn't use a single one, but they realized if they just tried some crazy things, they might do well. So they went out and brainstormed themselves and have had just a really, really successful Botanical Center. The one that I really had fun with, and you hear a theme of poop as we talk here, Chewy, I'm afraid, was a little dinky town called and said, hey, could you give us some ideas on how to get people? They lived on the interstate. They lived on exit 88 on Interstate 80. Now remember exit 88. So we started thinking, what do people want when they're driving down the road? Well, one, you need gas, but every exit had a gas station, it seemed like. You need food, and again, every exit seemed to have food. But what's the one thing, the final thing that everybody needs that you need? That bathrooms, a clean bathroom. What if we build a great big building and put in like 100 different restrooms and put different styles, country, modern? We'll get Kohler or Gerber, the makers of toilets, to do them and Charmin to do tests so they can do market research on what's the softest, as people are coming out.
Wow.
Then we get
You're a smart guy.
I got pooped out in Menlo, or I got PO'd in Menlo. You have outhouses outside for pictures, a place for dogs to go. But here's what was cool. You wouldn't have to spend a dime on marketing because we were going to get a king from somewhere to come in and sit on the throne. Think of that. All the late night talk shows would be talking about it. And we were going to do Burma shave signs along the interstate says, urinate at exit 88 or defecate at exit 88. You'd remember that forever. You wouldn't need to spend a dime in marketing. Well, they didn't want to be known as the poop capital of the world, so it did. But there's $1 million idea. Hey, I got one more $1 million idea though that if somebody wants to do. I tried this for Mega Millions and we couldn't figure out how to do it. When you look up tonight at the sky and see the moon, and the moon is either just a little fingernail clip or it's dark, you can't see it at all. What if we get a spotlight or a laser beam to be able to project images on the moon? I wanted to do the Mega Millions jackpot, but maybe it's Coca-Cola, so that up there you could own the moon as a billboard. No one else has claimed it yet on the dark side of the moon.
The whole world will see it.
Yeah, the whole world would see it. We could do Screaming Chewy on the moon.
That's marketing right there.
You got it. So let's figure that out. I think that's a fun $1 million idea. The final step in all that, when you get, we had some success at the zoo, is I then got the call from the governor and said, hey, the lottery director is retiring. Would you be interested in running the lottery? And I go, holy smokes, $350 million a year is what they take in on the lottery. You may not realize that in the U.S., if you had all the money that's spent on sports, all the tickets, all the money that was spent on music last year, all the money that's spent on movies last year, add them all together, you still do not have as much money as being spent on lottery in the United States today. $80+ billion spent on lottery tickets.
Oh my God.
Yeah, pretty crazy, huh?
I had no idea.
It's a fun business. People play, people like to gamble. And so the state sets these up so that, they're run fair and honest. And about 2 years into it, I got handed the craziest story that kind of bring it all together that ultimately became a book. And I can quietly say has been optioned for either a documentary on one of the major networks or a movie when it's all said and done. And it was a deal where a guy walks into a convenience store and buys a hot lotto ticket. Now, hot lotto is like Powerball or Mega Millions. It was played by about 17 states where states pool their money to get bigger jackpots. And why shouldn't he? Heck, he had done this 2 or 3 times before and won big jackpots. So he buys the ticket, takes it to Texas with him to vacation, gives it to his friend who gives it to his lawyer. The lawyer gives it to a person in New York. They find out they win $16.5 million, and they probably already knew. Ultimately went to a guy in Canada to say, try to get this cashed. Well, we knew something was screwy when they tried to cash it in Iowa. He was unlucky that day when he bought the ticket. First off, because he bought it in Iowa, and in Iowa, we have a law that you can't be anonymous when you claim a lottery ticket, which means that they knew when they turned it in, we would ask who bought it. Second is he bought this lottery ticket in a convenience store that recorded both his video and his audio. Now, he had a big black hoodie and was covered up, and he didn't realize his audio was being recorded. And in fact, when he bought the ticket in Iowa, there were 2,400 places to buy lottery tickets. only 4 recorded audio plus video. Now today, I think
Oh.
they all do, and they've got about 27 cameras. I mean, you pretty much sneeze and they have a close up of your nose. But he bought the ticket and left. And so we got a call 11 months later. You have 12 months to claim a ticket. 11 months later, of course, we had a lot of fake ones. People calling, yeah, I think the clerk stole my ticket, or my husband is in the mafia and I'm sure he got it because he left me and he's driving a truck. And if somebody claims it, you check, make sure it's not organized crime. But we got this call from a lawyer in Canada who said, hey, I've got the ticket and I've got these numbers. Now, a lottery ticket, you may not realize, there's almost 30 pieces of security just in that little piece of paper. You know, serial numbers, where it's bought, all sorts of crazy things to protect you as players.
Wow,
so
that's
we knew
a lot.
this guy was legit. That's what was crazy. But he said, yeah, I bought the ticket. And we asked him what he was wearing. He said, well, our Mary Neubauer, our public relations person, what are you wearing? Along with our security guy sitting beside her. And he said, oh, I was wearing my blazer and I'm about 70 years old. And we had the video. And she said, well, it didn't look like the guy in the video. He just kept going, yeah, I bought it. Well, we knew it wasn't him because this guy looked completely different from the description this lawyer was giving. So after he hung up and we told him, well, you can't just send it in. We're not just going to send you $16.5 million. He calls back a couple of days later and said, hey, I told a little fib. It wasn't me. It was my client. They don't want the publicity. Well, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, right, buddy. How stupid do you think we are? So he doesn't show up. He doesn't come down. But all of a sudden, 2 days before the ticket was to expire, we get a call from 2 lawyers in Des Moines who said, we're representing a lawyer in New York. And in they come with the trust. And an hour and a half before the ticket was to expire, they show up at the front door and want their money before they leave. Well, ding, ding, ding. We knew something was really screwy, so we said we're not going to pay it. So, of course, lawsuit concerns, all that sort of thing. We started negotiating with this lawyer in New York. He said he had a client that was rich, didn't want the publicity, same stuff. And then finally says, you know what? I'm just going to forfeit this because we're not going to with this hassle. He just forfeits the $16.5 million. Well, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, right, buddy. Huh? So we forgot about it. We had a press conference, and over my shoulder, I get handed a press release as I'm doing the press conference saying this guy withdrew it from the Department of Criminal Investigation and the Attorney General saying, we're starting an investigation. This seems like fraud. Wow. So for 2 years, they investigated it, couldn't get much out of it, till finally they got an agreement from both the guy in Canada and the guy in New York. And we knew they were connected because the trust, the president of this trust, the guy in New York was trying to give us, was the guy in Canada. So we knew they were connected, but we couldn't get back to the person who bought the ticket. So they both agreed to have a conversation with our Department of Criminal Investigation. Now, they ask a question that I hope you and I, Chewy, never get asked. They say, would you like to be the defendant or the witness? And you know what? Both of them said, I want to be the witness. So they gave up a guy, a lawyer in Houston, Texas. They said had a client named Robert Rhodes as the person who they got the ticket from. But we couldn't find Robert Rhodes, and his lawyer wouldn't talk to us either. So it got down toward the end, and we got a new person as a prosecutor, and he said, hey, let's release the video that we have and see if anybody recognizes this dude. Well, lo and behold, nobody recognized the picture, but they recognized his voice, and they said, that's Eddie Tipton. We all about fell over. Eddie Tipton was the national security head for the multi-state lottery, and he programmed the computer that drew the numbers. And he worked for the organization that also draws Powerball. Holy smokes, that raised a few red flags. That sounds unbelievable. So they started checking, they did some investigation. Ultimately, Eddie and his friend Robert Rhodes, the guy in Houston, and how we figured that out, let me tell you, if you get in any trouble with the cops, Chewy, you don't have to answer that. Never mind.
I plead the fifth.
If you ever get in trouble or you ever do anything illegal, never ever go to Facebook, LinkedIn, or use your cell phone. Because as soon as Eddie Tipton's name came up, we already knew the name Robert Rhodes, but we didn't know if Robert bought it or what. We just looked on the internet, and they had their internet wide open for public to see. And we saw they worked together for 6 years prior from Eddie's working at the multi-state lottery. And we immediately connected them, put it together, and they both got charged with fraud. But that
Holy
just sounds like a small Iowa deal. Wasn't that big a deal at that point? Most of the other states were saying, why didn't you just pay? That's not that big a deal. Forget about it. Until we got to the trial. And during the trial for Eddie, I think his lawyer said, we need a credible, give you a little credibility for your personality. So he said, bring my brother up. My brother is a justice of the peace in Texas and a law enforcement guy, and he'll testify. So he came up, sat down. They played the video in court, and he said, nope, that ain't my brother. That guy bought 2 hot dogs. My brother ain't a hot dog guy.
What?
Yeah, he said, he ain't a hot dog guy. That can't be him. And immediately, everybody kind of turned and looked at Eddie because he looked like a hot dog guy, first off. And the second is Associated Press thought it was such a crazy quote that they were covering the trial. They wrote it up and put it on the national wires. Remember how the national wires helped me with Johnny Carson? The national wires helped on this deal. It got back to his brother's hometown of Flatonia, Texas. And they were dumb enough to bring his brother up to testify, not knowing that his brother was involved in the whole scheme with Robert Rhodes and him. And his brother in Texas had been investigated for money laundering by an FBI agent who recognized all of this when it was in the paper from 10 years ago, called us and said, you should investigate his brother too. Damn. So we checked out his brother, Tommy Tipton. What did they look for? Cell phone, social media, all of his contact names. And we cross-referenced those to all the winners of $600 and above of the winners in the United States of lotteries, and immediately found 4 or 5 jackpots just like that. All of a sudden, we now have a national case. And how big was this deal when it was all said and done?
Holy shit.
So we went through all of this investigation and looked it all over and had, came up with it. And it went back to the three dudes. Now that we found it, we hadn't found how he actually did it, the smoking gun. We knew that he had to mess with the computer, but we were analyzing it wrong because he kept denying, I didn't know, I didn't do that. And he didn't. He actually put the code in right away. And how did we find it? Well, Wisconsin was one of the states, and they had a CIA, ex-CIA and FBI guy looking at a computer that Eddie hadn't touched after the draws. When they pull out an old one, he had erased the computer that we had for the Iowa game. It had been 4 years. So he convinced his boss, hey, we need a new one. So he erased it. So the evidence wasn't there. But this computer looked like it was there. And we had a map that showed the dates and times that he bought tickets. And the dates correlated to November 23rd, December 29th, and a date in May, because that's when he went on vacation. So we could say, I'm not near the computer. It wasn't me that bought it. Long story short, we gave those dates to the folks in Wisconsin, and they immediately found the code. So now we have the smoking gun. So what do you say to the 3 people who were involved? You want to be the defendant, or do you want to be the witness? And Robert Rhodes, the friend, the brother didn't give it up, but the friend did give it up, gave us more information. We went back to Eddie and his brother. They ultimately confessed, and the brother got 2 months in jail as a deal. Eddie got more. Robert Rhodes got probation, but Eddie got 25 years, and he's, as I understand it, still in Clarinda, Iowa, in a prison. So that we busted it, and I'm glad we did, because there's no doubt he'd still be doing it today. And our goal as public officials, and you try to be honest and as fair and worthy as you can be, but was to make sure that the games were fair and honest, and ultimately we got there. So that's what the book and ultimately either a movie or documentary might be, is that we optioned out.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy, man. That guy was smart, but not that smart.
Yeah, and really 25 years is a lot. When you look at the Tiger King documentary or even the McMillions documentary, they didn't get as many years as Eddie did. And I've tried to talk to a couple of folks that if he comes up for probation, I'm fine with him getting out. But I think he's learned his lesson. But it's just like anything else. If you have a small school district or a small church organization, if somebody writes the purchase orders and also the checks, they have all the keys to the kingdom, which is what Eddie had in this lottery organization. You're fraught for fraud. It's just too much temptation when you're talking about the kind of monies we were talking about.
Damn. And talking about Tiger King, when you mentioned about having your own zoo, like, that's probably what I would do. I'd probably like fucking just mess around with the tigers and pet them all the time.
There's an organization called the American Zoological Association, and the statistic that they used in Tiger King was true. There are more tigers in private homes today than there are in zoos or in the wild,
Oh my
which is
God.
crazy. There are people just breeding and selling, as you saw in that. But part of the theory of having a zoo is that you have somebody's called the Stud King. I might be able to call you the Stud King, Chewy. Yeah, I don't know you that well, but the Stud King, there's a person that's in charge of of each breed of tigers and every animal that's in a zoo. So they decide when animals get to breed. So if we had a male Siberian tiger and he was prime, they might send us a female to breed and have babies so that you keep the genetics as far apart as possible. So you don't have to go out into the wild and bring in a brand new specimen to get the genetics, so you don't have weird, moms and daughters together, or dads and daughters together, and breeding, or sisters and brothers, and all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty complicated, and everything there is to try to save. So a lot of species are alive just because of zoos. So part of the deal is, if you're a member of the AZA, you don't go in and play with the real endangered species, but there are all these education animals that you take out to schools. But the best part was just being able to walk out in it and look around. No one ever shoplifted in a zoo. It's like Disney. They don't shoplift because you're there to have fun. It's just, it's the most positive, fun experience that I had in my life, and a whole different give back than the lottery or cable or all the other things you and I have just talked about.
I always wanted to have my own zoo. I always loved animals. And wow, I had no idea there's a Stud King. So he's responsible for breeding every single species there?
That's correct. He or she is responsible. And what they look for, let's say that they have a new baby giraffe. Then they look for zoos that have the space and ability to display them, and that the actual exhibit is big enough. They have standards that you have to have. So they get to set all the standards, what they do, and then they decide where they're going to send those to continue to have that exhibit or that population going. So that's kind of a fun job in itself. It's very scientific in its own way. And zookeepers make no money. I'm always amazed. I think we were starting them at $24,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
And we would get probably 1,500, 2,000 applications anytime we had a zookeeper position open. People who work at zoos are really dedicated to those animals and the preservation of those animals, which is pretty crazy. My job was more of a business side. So, when I said I want to do Zoo Brew, they'd say, well, wait a minute, does that help with the animals? And I said, well, if we make more money and I can give you more money to give, to help animals in their experience, or to get a bigger exhibit or get new animals, would that be all right? And so, they kind of saw the cost benefit.
I love that Zoo Brew idea, man. You have such amazing ideas.
Well, as I said, the key is we all have $1 million idea. And I always figure it takes 100 ideas to get one good one. And in an organization, kind of my trademark that I tell folks is, I learned this way down the road in my career, is that sometimes as a boss, you say, oh, poop, and everybody heads for the bathroom. If people want to please their boss, if you say something, you think they think you're giving a directive, where you're not. You're just trying to give an idea. So the management staff would get stressed if I'd come in and say, hey, let's paint the wall green, or have you thought about putting an animal on the ticket, or whatever. Until we got together, and they said, you're stressing us out. You're giving us too many ideas. And I said, well, they're just ideas. I didn't expect you to do them. And so what we did was, as we spoke face to face, or as we did emails especially, we'd use one of three things. Number one, action required. That means I'm the boss. You got to do it. Okay. This is job changing. I'm telling you, you got to do it. But that was maybe 0.5%, 1% of all the emails. The second is FYI, for your information. And we use that a lot, FYI, which means you better read it sometime, but you don't have to right now. And then the one I used the most was COT, consider or throw away. And so that's one that we used a lot, because then you could tell somebody, hey, you don't even have to read it. The rules if you use COT is, if you're busy, just hit delete. I don't care if you don't read it. I just need to get it off my chest. Or if you want to read it down the road, just save it for later. And then they started sending it back to me. And so everybody could exchange ideas, and you had no judgment. Because usually, if I'm going to tell you, hey, what do you think about this, Chewy? I'm going to look at your eyes and your head expression on whether you agree or disagree right away. And that that really thwarts ideas, because if you're disagreeing, I probably might not give you another idea right away. But if we're all saying, okay, this is just an idea, we'll file it away and we'll think about it. It really became a free flow of information, much bigger in those organizations. And so even Zubru came in from one of our employees, who was the frontline employee, who just said, hey, we need to get more millennials here. And so I just took the ball and we ran with it, and away we went.
Smart man. You built a good little system too for all the ideas.
Well, as we said, I'm sitting in Iowa. You think that all good ideas must come from California or New York or somewhere else, but no matter where you're at, especially with the technology we have, it's pretty easy to come up with great ideas.
Damn, man, from television, zoos.
It's a little too ideal right now. You look at me. I mean, I'm as vanilla as it comes, Chewy. I mean, I'm white. I'm old. I'm bald. I'm Protestant. You name it. I'm as vanilla as has my kid. I've got grandkids, kids. Everybody's doing great. Everybody's working hard, and I feel thankful, but the thing that excites me the most is just talking and looking and doing things with new ideas and people that I've never met before, like you. I mean, this is what life's all about.
Yep, very driven, and just keep going. Just let those ideas flow and just go with them. See where it takes you. That's
right. And helping others in coming up with successful ideas is absolutely very rewarding.
And you're a good guy. That's why you're not in jail like Tiger King.
Well, I hope not. As I said, we all screw up in life. Me flipping the bird right out of the chute maybe was a good thing, because I learned a good lesson. If you do screw up, just take the lumps and get the hell moving on.
Yeah, and you're a very great example of if you fail, just keep going and gonna get
That's
there
right.
someday.
Well, we're all gonna. I mean, everybody looks like things are perfect. I have dealt with a lot of CEOs in my lifetime. I've been a CEO for 25, 30 years. I've never met anybody that when they walk into their building hasn't thought at some point or another, holy crap, I'm in charge of this place. Or to the lottery, $350 million, or at the zoo, you had what do we have, 35, 40 employees. You're in charge of their lives, and that's really scary. But when you walk in, if you're confident and you look for things that work and prioritize ideas, so you look for things that work and that your employees will be behind. You build a pretty good team pretty fast. But I guarantee you, when you hear people's stories, even the most successful, whether it's Bill Gates or all the different Facebook leaders we have, all that, they're having troubles with their kids. Kids are getting busted for this and that or whatever. Everybody's going to have a bad day now and then. So we just got to appreciate it while we can. Days like today, meet a new friend, Chewy.
I like it, man. And yeah, I'm glad I met you, man. I've just learned a lot just these few minutes, man.
That's good. That's the idea.
Oh.
And if anybody, the $80 billion gamble, if people want to kind of get ahead of that and see it, they can pick that up on Amazon or Kindle. It's called the $80 billion gamble. That's the one that has the Eddie Tipton story, the lottery story.
That almost sounds like that movie Catch Me If You Can.
It's very close. Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Wow. And so how long was the investigation? About how many years?
Well, he bought the ticket in 2010 and he went to jail in 2017. It just drove me nuts, because I'm one for action. Let's get it going. What's going on? I want to know what's going on. But once it gets into the judicial system, you realize you just got to let it work through, because you don't want to screw the thing up and let him get off scot-free for something that really did affect a lot of monies for a lot of good causes across the United States. So it seems like forever, and people would forget about it. And in some ways they have, but it took a long time, Chewy.
Man, I really hope that becomes a movie. That's fucking crazy.
Well, I think if you see something, you'll see it in the next year. It'll be probably next summer. The way they're talking about production later this year.
Man, that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And I say make a movie about your life as well, man. I mean, you've done a lot with your life. You've done like more than most people will do with their lives, basically.
I'm blessed, and part of that came from as parents. My dad was always encouraging. I never really realized. I always thought the guy was hard of hearing because I'd call back when I had a success of some sort in high school, college, wherever, and I'd say, "Hey, Dad, I had a great day today. Here's what happened." He'd say, "What was that again?" He'd always want to hear it twice because it was encouraging. That was kind of his way of encouraging me. But it's truly, we all have bad days, but you just got to enjoy it while you can. That's what I'm trying. I'm biking now. I picked that up about 3 years ago, and I got 1,000 miles in already this year. So,
Oh
I
my
got a new
God.
passion. But like you, probably, I like being around people, and I kind of miss that since I retired. So I'm doing the public speaking circuit. I've been to Germany and all over the United States, and telling the Eddie Tipton story. And that's really my passion now, because then you're in with a lot of people, and you go to a place and you can see the place for a day. I go in the day or two before and look it all over, and then do the speech and go home. And I've had a great vacation and a good business deal.
Living the life.
Yeah, I guess so, Chewy.
And so, as a successful businessman, CEO, and do you have any advice for people out there?
Well, I think the big one is just don't give up. If you're applying for a job or whatever, a lot of people say, I want this job. I want to do this. And so they apply for that job, but that's all they apply for. I tell everybody, apply for as many things as you can, get in on as many things as you can. And the other is, when you're in a job or you're in an organization or you're trying, school, anywhere else, someone says, anybody want to volunteer to clean the bathroom? I'm the first one to raise a hand, because you get noticed when you do what other people don't want to do. And that's helped me a lot in a lot of careers. So I would say, if you're looking for a job, apply to as many places as possible. And some of them, even if it's remotely worth trying, you do it because you want to get as many interviews and get polished up on your answers and that sort of thing. And when you go in, always use the word success in the interview. How can I help this company be more successful? How can I help you rather than, hey, how many days of vacation do I get? What's my healthcare like? And I need more money. I need a lot of money. You let them, because you can always say, if you're thinking about you, which you should be, everybody should be in their own way, because you got to be happy in what you're doing, is you can say no at the end when they offer you the job if you don't like it. But making those kinds of demands and doing those sort of things up front will never get you a job.
I love it. That's great advice. That shows teamwork. How can I help, have this company succeed? That shows teamwork right there.
Absolutely. Use the word success anywhere you can, and always send a written thank you afterwards. That sounds pretty crazy. Everybody uses email today. Very rarely as an exec did I get an actual handwritten note. And you can write it up when you go in for the interview and just leave it there so you don't have to pay the postage. But send a personal thank you afterwards. And when you go in, just think about how much fun it is to go meet somebody else. And the other question I think is good in interviews, or when you're talking to people and looking for jobs, is tell me why this is such a fun job for you. When the interview is talking, tell me about the company and why this is fun for you to work here. You'll hear a lot. You'll hear the honest stuff when you ask questions like that.
I like it. Wow, you're a very smart man, and wow.
I'm not that. I have a BS in speech. Honest to God, that's my degree in college, is a Bachelor of Science in Speech. And so, I think it's part, again, growing up in a farm community where you talk to everybody all the time, and it's you just want to get along, and let's make it work.
Awesome, man. And yeah, I really hope that comes through, man. That movie, totally looking forward to it, and your book as well. So it's available on Kindle and Amazon?
Yep, there are 2 books. One is Dare to Dream, Dare to Act, which is more on innovation and creativity. And then the one on the lottery is called The $80 Billion Gamble. But if you just hit Amazon and put Terry Rich author, you'll see the two. I think if you do Kindle, or you're part of the Kindle deal, you can listen to it for free.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. I do have Kindle. I'm definitely going to check it out.
Check it out. Well, it's fun talking to you, Chewy.
Yeah,
you haven't screamed once at me. What's the deal with your mantra, Screaming Chewy?
I don't know, actually. Sometimes I get really excited and I just talk loud. So
Yep.
That's why.
Well, keep in touch. It's always a pleasure, man.
Yeah, for sure. And it's been a pleasure having you on. And man, I feel so motivated right now. I mean,
Well, let's go get some good stuff done. That's the bottom line for sure. If nothing else, let's do what we enjoy.
I
That's
love it.
part of biking. And when it's all said and done, shoot me an email for the link, and I'll help put it out on my group too. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Yep. It's a pleasure. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye.
Yep. Take it easy.